Former Dolton Mayor Tiffany Henyard is expected in court today for failing to produce records in a lawsuit against her in the Village. It is over documents she has not handed over as part of a Freedom of Information Act request. A judge previously said Henyard could be fined $1,000 a day if she doesn't give the documents to the plaintiff's lawyer. If Henyard doesn't show up to court today, she could be thrown in jail.
Yes, you heard that right. Tiffany A. Henyard may no longer be the mayor of the Village of Dolton. She may no longer be the head of the Dolton Township Board of Supervisors, thus stripping her of her super mayor title, but she will always be the super mayor in the hearts and minds of me and you guys out there in the audience. And right now, she is on the cusp of not only facing fines of $1,000 a day for her failure to disclose information that she is required to disclose as a public official in the state of Illinois, but she is also being summoned to court this Friday, the first Friday of June, in order to answer to a judge because she refuses to do so, where presumably if she continues to decline, she will end up being held in physical contempt of court, meaning she will be sent to jail, meaning we will finally see the super mayor exactly where she belongs after her years-long scam and fraud perpetuated against the Village of Dolton and, of course, in the Dolton Township. Now, we're going to get into this. We will break this down, but before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
Tiffany Henyard is no longer the mayor of South Suburban Dolton, but legal cases continue to haunt her. A judge found Henyard in contempt of court for failing to produce records from her time as mayor as required by state transparency laws. There's also a threat of a $1,000 per day fine. A watchdog group sued her. Henyard attended court via Zoom today and claimed she was only the face of the village and not in charge of record keeping.
So look, at this point in time, you guys should know more than you ever needed to know about the corrupt super mayor Tiffany A. Henyard, because I have produced well over 30 videos that are all contained in my Super Mayor playlist, which will be linked in the iCard and in the description of this video if you need to be caught up. But essentially, this ties back to one of her many controversies, which is, of course, the complete and utter lack of transparency in her administration. And the defense that we heard right there is one that we are all too familiar with, which is, of course, it's somebody else. Tiffany Henyard did not do. She is completely innocent. She didn't do nothing. And you really should be asking the actual person who needs to be held accountable in this situation, which is this unnamed record keeper that has control of this information. But you guys already know how this went down in terms of the financial records. The super mayor was getting questioned on her very dubious spending as a person in that position. She was running up credit card debts for all manner of personal travel, disguised as travel for the Village of Dolton and for the Dolton Township. She was intermingling funds and all sorts of things. And when she was confronted on that, her lavish trips, her first-class vacations to Las Vegas, her steak dinners, she ended up trying to run this same exact response to the local news media, which is she has no connection at all whatsoever with the credit cards of the Village of Dolton or of the Dolton Township.
I do not handle anything as relates to with credit cards. As you heard me speak today in my board meeting about, I do not handle that.
Some of those charges are for you, though.
No, sir.
You didn't go to Las Vegas? What is that?
No comment.
You don't know if you were in Las Vegas?
Of course I do.
Were you?
It's not paid by them.
Did you fly first class to Las Vegas?
Any other questions?
Actually, yes. The credit card records do shed some light on tax dollars spent at several restaurants near the Strip, including Cafe Hollywood and Hot and Juicy Crawfish.
All right. Any other questions?
So you're not going to answer how taxpayer dollars are being spent? That seems odd.
I just answered it. What do you mean? I just answered your questions.
You said you wouldn't answer about Las Vegas.
You asked me a question and I responded. So any other questions you may have?
Now, we know that this is completely absurd and ridiculous. We understand that this was an utter lie told directly to the face of this media person with a smile on her face, because the only people who went on these trips with the super mayor were her political allies and people who were her friends. And oftentimes she would bring her political allies from the Dolton Township or their wife on the trip paid for by her position as the Village of Dolton's mayor. And by the way, this is in addition to the fact that we recently discovered that she had a whole bunch of more of compensation that nobody was expecting, which upped her salary well above the $300,000 threshold. And this was due to the fact that she was taking money or taking an increased pay in order to travel outside of the state, despite the fact that the village of Dolton didn't have business outside of the state. So in this particular case, you have a local watchdog group who, like the local news media, ended up suing Tiffany Henyard for records. Now, of course, she has been withholding those records. She continues to withhold those records even after she has left office. And obviously, this creates a problem if you're trying to figure out what's going on in the government. And even though the village of Dolton has a new mayor, in reality, they still do not have full access to this information. And the thing is, you definitely want to see what this woman was doing, because a lot of what we discovered through the Lightfoot report and through the various hearings when the village of Dolton trustees ended up getting little tidbits of what the super mayor was spending money on was absurd to the nth degree. Again, one of my favorite clips of Tiffany Henyard, and by the way, one of her earliest scandals, has to do with the lease that she signed on for the village of Dolton for a Chevy Tahoe that's MSRP was something like $93,000, but the way that she structured this contract was so bad, she was paying like $55,000 in interest and fees associated with that, and Tiffany denied it despite the fact that her signature was all up on it, as of course the Dolton trustee ended up telling her.
I sat here and looked at a lease that y'all was paying $149,000 for one of them trucks. You make absolute, that's like when you 19 years old and you go get a car and the interest rate 27%. That makes absolutely no sense. You're not making great finance. Excuse me?
Please state facts.
But let me tell you, here it is, dated December 27, 2022. The cash price of a 2023 Chevy Tahoe, $93,216.71. Interest and APR, $55,929.49. Total lease price, $149,146.20. Tell me if it's not facts, because your signature is all on it.
I don't see that.
Okay, but you want me to pass?
I don't.
Now, of course, this is not the extent of what the super mayor had spent money on that the village of Dolton trustees were not informed about. You guys are all aware of the fact that she had this ridiculous police detail that was following her and protecting her, and officers on that detail, because essentially this was a bribe for control of the police department, were able to bill hundreds of hours in overtime to the taxpayers and take home paychecks north of $12,000 for a 2-week pay period. And of course, the most absurd of all of these was that one officer who ended up working, according to his paperwork, something like 303 hours total in a 2-week period, which I believe only left him 23 hours in order to, rest and not be at work, which is obviously insane, obviously not true, not reality. But of course, this is what the super mayor was doing.
And in the case of Officer Terry Young last May, 303 hours worked over a 2-week period. That resulted in a single paycheck of more than $13,000.
How? How does a person put in a 2-week pay period, 303 hours? That's impossible. That's impossible.
336
Does he
hours.
never go to sleep?
In fact, there are 336 hours total in 2 weeks.
Now look, we all understand at this moment in time that the super mayor's general strategy is to blame everybody else for her poor behavior, accuse them of being corrupt, accuse them of doing no work.
Y'all don't do no work.
But in reality, this strategy is just not going to fly. The Edgar County watchdogs have been on this case for a very long period of time. I believe they originally filed this Freedom of Information Act request back in January of 2024, and we're at the point in time where Tiffany Henyard saying that she has nothing to do with credit cards, and make no mistake about it, this is for the detailed records of how she used the credit cards while she was in office, is just not going to work for this judge. The reason why this Cook County judge is summoning the mayor in court in person, no longer allowing her to appear via Zoom, is because this is essentially the last day of freedom of consequences that she's going to be able to have as the former mayor and Thornton Township Board of Supervisors. And again, this is just the tip of the iceberg, but it will be quite satisfying to see her try to fool the judge in person, fail miserably, ultimately ending up in a situation where, of course, she is going to have to go to jail for contempt. And we still have the looming FBI probe and a bunch of other criminal investigations, a state attorney general investigation that are all focused in on the supermayor. Now, of course, the village of Dolton has its own problems post the supermayor. It turns out that the new Pope Leo, actually comes from the village of Dolton. His home is there, so now there's an eminent domain fight where they're trying to seize the home of the first American Pope in the history of the Catholic Church, and there's a whole situation there that we might get into a little bit later. I think a bit of a mistake being made by the current mayor, Jason House, of the village of Dolton, but make no mistake about it, the supermayor looms large, and her argument that she's just the face of Dolton, she's just the inspiration of Dolton, and she's not responsible for actually complying with the rules of Dolton is not going to work. Now, with all that being said, there are two things that I want to point out for all of you out there in the audience that think that the supermayor is done. She is cooked in Cook County, and that, first and foremost, is that these are just allegations, as the supermayor would call them.
Off of hearsay, false allegations, and not facts.
In addition to that, she is going to appear in Cook County Court. She is going to appear before this judge, and the judge is going to try to hold her accountable, but the supermayor has one retort that beats everybody each and every time that she deploys it, which of course is talking about herself as an inspirational black woman that's just getting beaten on by people like this judge.
And y'all sitting up here beating and attacking on a black woman that's in power. Y'all should be ashamed of yourselves. All the stuff that y'all did to get people to come to our community, to just diss and down our community. Shame on y'all.
Now, I think the United States needs a constitutional amendment that requires every aspect of her legal troubles to be filmed and broadcast live to every single TV and smart device in the United States of America, because we deserve to see what goes down in this court hearing live as it goes on. And if there is a stream, if there is video of it, if she is held in contempt, I will 100% be covering that for you guys in the future. But as of right now, where we are is the supermayor is refusing to turn over records. You have a judge summoning her to court in person, because very likely if she continues to refuse, she will end up jailed for contempt of court, and then the fine process will start, which of course is going to be devastating for her because she just lost her nearly or over $300,000 in salary and compensation. And in addition to that, she's already facing eviction from her apartment or from the home that she's renting, because guess what? She's not paying rent. Now, of course, I will leave this up to you guys out there in the audience. What do you think of these latest developments? Do you think the supermayor is going to be held in contempt in the way that she's going to be sent to jail? Or do you think she will escape justice once again? Or do you think that these are all just false allegations and not facts? Again, all your thoughts down in the comments below. As per usual, if you like the video, you show them by leaving a like. You can subscribe for more content. You can follow me on my social medias. You can support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the supermayor possibly heading to jail. Till next time.